Hello, welcome to session 2 of Hyper Annotations. We are here in Venice for the Biennale di Venezia 58th edition, How We Live in Interesting Times, and I'm here with Manuel Correa, who's an artist and filmmaker based in London. Manuel, would you like to talk a little bit about what you've seen so far in Venice?
Yes, I only have preliminary impressions. I think a lot of the artworks that I managed to see, I spent quite a bit of time with them, but I think an engagement with this kind of work grows over time and it requires time to be able to process it. One of the works that struck me is a work that I've been following for a while, so of course the relationship to this work had already existed. Was the work of Pedro Vargas Lugo, which is called Actos de Dios. This work has a basically like slapstick comedy aspect that is what would happen if Jesus' miracles would have gone wrong. So there's this, sort of fantasy, but it works on different temporalities. There is, as a formal element, I really like that there is 2 screens, one that was edited with the same footage was edited by the artist, and the other one was edited by an editor, and you can see that the timing is quite different, and it shows you a lot of what it means to make a film, I think, or to make an artwork, which I think is very interesting, right? It shows this formality. There's, of course, a wealth of work from everywhere, which I find very interesting. The Canadian Pavilion has an incredible, video installation.
Do you think, because we're talking about mega biennials, mega exhibitions in general, and the interface of the internet, I feel like since the 1990s, when the biennial really took over as a format, and it was also the era of the curator, superstar curator really started in the 90s, and contemporary art, globalized art started to become a thing. The biennial is the perfect format for that. But now, 30 years on, with the increase in social networks and the possibility to participate from a distance, why are we all gathered here in Venice? Why today? And why are there so many people?
I think there's 2 things that are fundamental to this. One is that, of course, the rest of the biennials coincides with the rise of the internet. More biennials, it also has to do with more, access to the internet and more accessibility of works. So all of a sudden, I think people have the anxiety of what is it that they must look at, what is it that is important for them to consider. So a biennial does the sorting effect, right? Like basically, this team of people will say, okay, these artists are the ones that are talking about things that are relevant today or contemporary issues that, are pertinent. They chose them, they put them in place. And then you go and see this, and this is what you're supposed to look at. I think also for curators, it works a little bit like a shopping mall. They go see the works that these artists are producing on commission, or they're producing at all, or find artists that they didn't know. The texts in the wall tell you, very almost like an algorithm, like Mohammed Salemi would say. It would say something like, this is about climate change, this is about the Anthropocene, this is about, future-oriented ontologies. So you more or less, what kind of work fits with what other work. So if you are, curating another event, or you're curating a museum, whatever, and you come to a biennial, you see what works fit into whatever you have, or that you're thinking of programming. So I think it makes sense in this professional realm. Of course, there's also the commercial world that circulates around the biennials, which is almost unspoken. Of course, gallerists whose artists are represented at the biennial come and they try to make connections that could be lent to that. But I also think that biennials are also a reaction against the internet in a way, whereas the internet offers you a lot of things that you can sort through, and that you have to do the sorting yourself, and that it will, if something interests you, be able to go deeper and deeper into it. I think in the biennial, especially in the preview days, it's very different later on. It will evolve into something else, and unfortunately, I won't be here for that. But it's hard to have an like an actual serious engagement to the work where you see it once, twice, you think about it, you go back and forth, because of course you're pressed for time, you're trying to see everything, because it's really like a shopping mall.
It really is, and it's this hyper-stimulation, which often, in the sense that if you are here over an extended period of time, you start to look at the things that aren't art. You just want to look at nature, for example, go into an island and they appreciate the city of Venice, which I think might be a good segue into talking about Venice as a platform because of the logistic complications of being in Venice, making the Biennale that more prestigious, also because it's a step harder to do than anywhere else. And what is your relationship to Venice, and how do you perceive it as a participant and as an artist, and when you come to visit the Biennale?
No, I really like it. I mean, I think Venice is a great place. It's the second time I've been. But I was hearing yesterday that there's something really interesting anthropological, is that every time there's the Biennale, or the Biennale de Arquitectura, or the film festival, it attracts groups of people that are totally different, like totally different, which I think is very interesting, right? So, of course, it's easier to make a film festival where you just bring a hard drive, but like the transport of objects to Venice, even though it's a harbor, may be more complicated, but it's not. I mean, that's not something that but yeah, just, I mean, it's good that it's here. It's great to go out and, have so many things to do.
Yesterday we were with Lucia Pietoru-Justi, who is the general ecology curator at Serpentine Gallery, and she was saying that they are working a lot with local communities and trying to make their exhibition, their Lithuanian pavilion that she's curating, that a step more sustainable in terms of ecology, in terms of local participation, which I thought was really interesting. And I think going back to the idea of the market and commercially, how the Biennale works a little bit as a supermarket, shopping mall interface, curated, streamlined sort of edit of things to see, it blows my mind that a couple of, earlier, the Biennale used to be scheduled right before Art Basel. So people would literally go from Biennale, from Venice to Basel. It's no longer the case. So we have a month of anticipation in between the two mega events. I wonder what you think about that.
I don't know. I've never gone to Art Basel, so I don't know.
You're not really good at it in the commercial range.
I hope to not. I don't make objects.
I think as an observer, how can we make sense of that?
I don't know.
What is this relationship?
I think it's something kind of strange in a sense, because after you are in the biennial 2 entire days and you look at everything, you try to read the text of the things that interest you and other things that you don't know that you feel they may interest you, you become overwhelmed. It's hard to absorb more information. So I can't even imagine what it would be like to be here and to go to a art fair. But I also think that increasingly I see that biennials are becoming more and more like art fairs.
They're becoming more in what sense?
Well, not in the commercial overtly commercial sense, but of course, if you're really interested in a piece that you see in a biennial, chances are you can acquire it. And chances are the person that can help you acquire it is probably sitting nearby.
It's a really incredible opportunity for young artists, even if not financially. I imagine financially it doesn't make a massive difference if you participate in a biennial, but artists it's the level of prestige for an artist to participate in the Biennale, for a country to participate in the Biennale. You're from Colombia, and we were just talking how Colombia doesn't have a pavilion to our knowledge yet. When will that happen? How difficult, or what does it mean for a smaller country to participate, or an underrepresented country to participate in Venice Biennale, and how does it affect the perception of the place itself?
I guess if you let me backtrack a little bit and deconstruct that, I think there is something really interesting about the Venice Biennial, is that it starts with this colonial paradigm of the universal expositions. All countries have a pavilion, and this pavilion is where you go to see what the art production of these faraway countries is. So there is something very problematic about this, and it is also something that I think we ought to be critical about. The idea that you have a big exhibition like that includes multiple parts of the world, around the thematic, I think that's good. But the problem is when the nationality becomes the driving force or the driving, element of the presentation of the work, then of course you're compartmentalizing it to be able to understand, to grasp, to divide. But also, you're basically replicating a colonial logic into it. So of course, yeah, there, you know, when Venezuela had a wealth of oil, Venezuela built a pavilion, a very, very beautiful building, and it's since closed. And it tells you, of course, like how many pavilions will open, will close, will reopen, as the tides of politics will, you know, sweep through the place. Which I find very interesting. It's of course, you find pavilions that have massive lineups, especially, I mean, the UK and the French pavilion that were right in the end in this, you know, sort of like high up place. They always had lineups, which I find very interesting as well, right? Why is it that this is what like, when you go in, the architecture drags you there. So I wonder why, right?
I think also the giardini that were set up in, when was it, the early 1900s. I think the first Biennale was at the end of the 19th century, and I think there was the influence with Mussolini, between Hitler and Mussolini. There's a big conflict there, and you're absolutely right. They are these institutional frameworks to visit a country. What do we do when borders dissolve? What do we do when the internet what do we do with the biennial in the age of the cloud? I guess I'm trying to get at. How do we talk about that? Or
when governments like the Brazilian government or the Venezuelan government decide, okay, we have this building there, but we can't sustain it anymore. And then they decide, okay, we'll close it down. What does it mean to defund the culture, right?
To defund the culture, that's a really big part of it.
Which I think it's fascinating, right? And I think as the closed pavilions tell us as much about the culture, if not more perhaps, than the open pavilion.
You're absolutely right. We need to do some work on these closed pavilions. Maybe just as we wrap things up, would you like to, what are you looking most forward to seeing as we go on?
Well, I really want to see the French pavilion. I haven't seen it yet.
Leur Prouveau.
I'm really excited
That's
to see.
That's exciting.
So, yeah, but
yeah, are you going there today?
Yes, I'm going there today.
Oh, that's fantastic. You'll have to tell us how it is.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Manuel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.